The original 1979 Mobile Suit Gundam. To the extent that people even talk about the Universal Century Gundam timeline, they often pass over this one for its offspring. But hot take, there is something special about this show that hasn't really been matched by any of the following Gundam series I've seen. And I'm not talking about the compilation movies, I mean the whole 43-episode original series, in all of its aged glory. Let's go all the way to the beginning. The White Base, the big super prototype ship meant to carry the cool new toys, arrives at Side 7, a sleepy space colony. Then Char, the show-off ace pilot with his cunning special forces, arrives and flushes the violence toilet. Everyone spins round and round, a bunch of characters get sucked into the White Base, and against his will perhaps, a mechanically minded boy named Amuro is forced into the Gundam. Most of the episodes to follow are just one desperate running battle with the new crew of the White Base, a bunch of civilians and green soldiers, trying to get away from Char and his erstwhile Zeon compatriots. The White Base has the Gundam and other absurd super technology on their side, but this is but a crutch for their obvious inexperience, as they fall for the many traps and feints of seasoned veterans like Char.
This is your captain speaking. You might have noticed that I'm now wearing a fully sealed spacesuit at all hours. Not one of you nasty-ass space noids has showered since we left Side 7. The only thing you're evolving into is a new type of stanky.
There is a constant sense of tension. Our heroes are never safe, always behind enemy lines, only a step ahead at most. Char is always hiding around the next corner about to spring some new sneak attack. Every potential safe refuge is ruined as soon as the White Base's arrival comes to notice. There is a constant sense of position as the White Base goes from Side 7 to Luna 2 and all around Earth, just trying to slip the Zeon noose, each one presenting new environments and dangers. There is also a sense of time and context. The events of the series start in the middle of what would be later known as the One-Year War, in a lull before its final act. When the final act arrives, the decisive offensives leading up to the final battle at Aboaku, it essentially becomes something being fought in the background between vast Zeon and Federation fleets, with the White Base and Char being swept up in the mix, the war continuing around them as they have their new type psychic mind battles.
It's your fault Ryu Yosei was killed by Rubma.
Who the hell is Ryu Yosei?
Rubma balls. It's difficult to say that our heroes and villains had a truly decisive impact on the direction of the war, what with the apparent material disadvantages of Zeon. Super weapons with super pilots, no matter how potent, can only do so much when there's entire armies involved.
The Feddies needed 5 GMs to defeat a single Gelgoog. If only Giren had built more of them, maybe Zeon would have won.
Now, it's kind of funny to treat this all with such seriousness, right? Given what the actual text of the original uncut Mobile Suit Gundam TV series is like. Goofy, upbeat music, transformation sequences as the Gundam combines into a new toy line to defeat the latest gimmicky Zeon toy line. Don't even get me started on how rushed the art and animation often is. One has to assume that the concept with this series was to make a toy commercial the whole family could gather around the TV and enjoy together. From the little tykes who just want to see the beam sword, to the 14-year-old who can relate to Amuro and friends, to Dad, who can draw the connections to the stories of Nazi Uberpanzers he used to read about in otaku war magazines, and he can pretend to be Ensign Bright when he's trying to discipline the kiddos. It is charming from that perspective, but I understand why it is generally lower rated than later Universal Century entries. But the strengths of the original series, and others set during the OYW, become most obvious when you compare Mobile Suit Gundam to the next entry in the main timeline. There are a lot of things to like about Zeta Gundam. It looks and moves like a real anime instead of a cheap toy commercial. The soundtrack is a certified banger, straight out of Maine. Quattro Bagina is a cool new original character. There are some great themes and darkly dramatic moments here. A big lesson of the series is how everyone is meant to move past the old guard and onto the next generation. As unsatisfying as it sometimes is, not seeing Amuro and Char throw down one last time, I will credit its determination in not resting on the laurels of Mobile Suit Gundam. In terms of villains, Paptimus Sirocco is the answer to the question, what if David Koresh was the cops? And the inexplicable way his cult binds people to his will is deeply distressing to see. Sarah is cut loose on a space station to live as a normal human being for a couple hours as a reward for planting a bomb. And even after enjoying her freedom and meeting Camille, she goes right back to Sirocco, willing to die for him. The events and direct elements of the plot are most certainly compelling, so far as Tomino's melodrama can be. But compared to the original Mobile Suit Gundam, Zeta Gundam creates a feeling that the proceedings take place in an abstract void populated only by main characters. The entire conflict starts with Quattro Bagina's attack on Grip's colony, where Camille Bidan, the main character, ends up joining the crew of the Argama, flagship of the Resistance. From here, events are completely driven by the agency of Camille, his fellow pilots, and a handful of leader characters. The final battle is not, so far as what is seen and felt, a vast clash of nations in which our characters mainly bounce around, but a series of mobile suit duels and Scooby-Doo chases between these main characters, ended with a single blast from a superweapon. The Gundam Wiki calls this conflict the Grips War. War? It's like Five Guys, burger and fries. To be fair, it's not meant to be a great power war. The primary conflict is between the Titans, a ruthless paramilitary force backed by the Federation to keep the colonies in line, and the Anti-Earth Union Group, a resistance organization funded by business and civil society interests out in the colonies. On premise, I'm interested. Rebellions and revolutions are always a fertile ground for storytelling. But unfortunately, the political angle of this conflict barely gets any more definition than that former summary. Char makes a speech to an audience which, by all rights, should be very suspicious of him, being synonymous with the people and ideology that frightened everyone into this, and suddenly all public support for the Titans evaporates. It's all very mechanical, and as interesting as the main characters are, it feels like the world flows completely through them. At the very least, the conflict being a rebellion should have reinforced the sense of isolation and vulnerability that the original series had. The Argama is not the white base. Relatively speaking, they have the technology and support that can be found between the couch cushions, and the enemy is an entire military with little better to do than go after them. But instead, particularly after the first dozen-odd episodes, it feels like the crew of the Argama are just flying around at leisure, with some Titans occasionally locating them by magic and flying up to have a duel. They never run low on supplies, battle damage is reversed at the end of the episode. Compare to MSG, with sequences like the Trap of Mikuv, where the white base gets nade on, and those dire situation persists across several episodes, escalating tension, creating a problem which maybe can't be solved by the Gundam blowing up a few Zakus. But my favorite episode of Mobile Suit Gundam is one many would dismiss as filler. Episode 14, Time Be Still, introduces us to the junior enlisted of a backwater Zeon base on Earth, a patrol station with only a single Zaku to its name. They're sitting around bored and horny and getting bitten by bugs, the latter a foreign concept to space noids. But the boys hear that the white base is passing through their area, and they start planning to bring it and the Gundam down, wanting to get a ticket home without shooting themselves in the foot. The white base is busy getting a resupply and repair from this foxy logistics officer who keeps slipping through Zeon lines to reach them. She explains that she can't bring any more personnel because the Federation is massing forces for an offensive elsewhere. There is a war on, after all. When she leaves, a Zeon patrol attacks her cargo plane. She manages to slip away thanks to good tactics, but the real objective was to bait Amuro and the Gundam out into the open. He chases after the Zaku, but is set upon by Zeon soldiers on tiny unprotected hoverbikes. He blows some of them away with his rockets, but a few hiding in defilade ambush him, planting magnetic limpet bombs all over the Gundam. It is an incredibly plucky and daring attack, which you can't help but respect. I imagine that this would be the climactic scene in a hypothetical Space Red Dawn, where the Space Wolverines bring down an invading Red Walker. Amuro flees to safety and slowly begins to remove the bombs. The Zeons hide and watch, lamenting that they only had 30-minute fuses. The rest of the white base crew look on in tense silence, as Bright is unwilling to risk any other lives when the bombs could detonate at any moment. But the Zeons are increasingly impressed with Amuro's bravery as he digs beneath the Gundam to reach the last bomb, time running out. The rest of the crew can bear to watch no longer and all risk their lives running out to help him remove it. Everyone is sweating, even the Zeons, who fight over the binoculars and wonder if he will make it. Amuro rolls the bombs away on an ATV in the last second, and everyone just barely clears the mushroom cloud. The Zeons laugh, disappointed that they aren't going home, but impressed with Amuro's bravery, matching that of their ambush. They even roll up, in disguise, to congratulate him, and then drive off into the sunset. Not a super weapon or a cyber new type in sight, just dudes living in the moment. In his first review of the Call of Duty campaigns, Noah Caldwell-Gervais pointed out that there was a definite shift around Modern Warfare 3. Regular infantry ceased to appear as player characters, leaving only the most elite of the elite special forces, with goofy, tasteless results. The same thing happens to the Gundam franchise, if far earlier. After the 1-year war, the conflicts of Gundam become a personal, autocratic affair. The entire setting wraps around the fingers of a handful of elite new types and super robots for whom national militaries are never an obstacle, only ever impeded by another new type and a super robot. Unlike Call of Duty, it can't be said that Gundam ever embodied the earnest heroism of the citizen soldier, but it gave its fantastical elements contrast by making them a small part of a comprehensible, honest to Clausewitz war, with governments and supply lines and regular soldiers, as opposed to purely the ideological squabbles of post-human warlords and their Praetorian guards. I'm sure this change is by design to an extent. There is a certain charm to this kind of larger-than-life melodrama. The enduring success of superhero stories demonstrates that. It's easier to write and animate these kinds of narratives, and it gives Tomino more chances to soapbox about the environment, the gold standard, how women have no agency, and Anaheim electronics. It seems like most vaguely military genre fiction, from Ace Combat and Metal Gear to Call of Duty and Star Wars, either starts in this form or evolves towards it. It is only natural to center the world on a few villains and protagonists. But this all means there is a somewhat rarefied feeling to the original Mobile Suit Gundam. Its world is more lively and real in a way that makes it easier to take seriously, despite every other aspect of the presentation. Many say the 1-year war has become overstuffed by later works, but I say it is better to be overstuffed than not at all. For all of the many ways in which Zeta and Beyond are superior anime, and they are, Mobile Suit Gundam is a more convincing war story, and it's hit the spot for me in a way that its successors mostly haven't. War is bad, mechs are rad, indeed, but you can't imagine an episode like Time Be Still in a series like Zeta Gundam, can you? And it makes that argument far better than any turncoat new type drama possibly could. It makes the ordinary soldier sympathetic, and at the end of the day, those are the guys who get trampled underfoot when the powerful go to war with their rad robots.